Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Tira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacharya Astottara Shatashi Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. Good morning. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamah Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangulam Gayate Girim Yatkripathamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Narati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravan Pacharya Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Deshatarine. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Samam Bonam, Chapter 68, The Marriage of Samba, verses 38 and 39. I'll be repeating verse 38 and then I'll read verse 39. Bunjayate kurubirdatam Bhukandam Vishnaya Kila Upanaha Kilavayam Swayam tu Kuravashira Bunjayate Kurubirdatam Bhukandam Vishnaya Kila Upanaha Kilavayam Swayam tu Kuravashira Bunjate Kurubirdatam Bhukandam Vishnaya Kila Upanaha Kilavayam Swayam tu Kuravashiraha. Please chant. Bunjate, they enjoy. Kurubi, by the Kurus. Datam, granted. Bhu, of land. Kandam, a limited parcel. Vrishnayaha, the Vrishnis. Kila, indeed. Upanaha, shoes. Kila, indeed. Vayam, we. Swayam, themselves. Tu, however. Kuravaha, the Kurus. Shriyaha, the head. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We Vrishnis enjoy only whatever small parcel of land the Kurus allow us, and we are indeed shoes, where the Kurus are the head. Verse 39. Aho Aishvarya Matanam Eva Maninam, Asambhada Giro Rukshaha, Kasatena Shashita. Translation. Just see how these puffed up Kurus are intoxicated with their so-called power, like ordinary drunken men. What actual ruler, with the power to command, would tolerate their foolish, nasty words? So, for my own sake, I'll give a brief chapter overview. So this chapter is called The Marriage of Samba. So there was a assembly to decide the husband of Duryodhana's daughter, Lakshmana. And in that assembly was Samba, who is the son of Krishna. Krishna steals Lakshmana. Samba steals Lakshmana. And the Kauravas don't quite like that. So they decide, okay, we're going to arrest Samba. So as Samba's fleeing, the Kurus assemble, chase him, and by some unscrupulous means arrest him. Narada, being Narada Muni, sees this and goes and tells the Yadus, hey, Samba got arrested. So the Yadus say, all right, well, I guess we're going to war. And Balaram decides, no, I don't think we should do that. He convinces the Yadus not to go to war with the Kurus, and then himself goes to Hastinapur and tries to talk it out with the Kurus. First he sends Uddhava in, they're happy to see Uddhava, and then they hear, oh, Balaram's here too, good. And so Balaram goes in, starts trying to reason with the Kurus, who are decidedly unreasonable, and they start running their mouth to Balaram, which is always a bad idea. And then Balaram gets very angry and begins to speak. That's what we've been hearing the last couple days. So in the 24th verse, we hear the statement from the Kurus, which Balaram references in the first verse that we all chanted, where the Kurus say now the shoes are trying to climb onto the head. So they're comparing the Yadu dynasty to shoes. And then for the 39th verse, we don't have any commentary. We don't have any Bhaktivedanta commentary, but we do have two commentaries. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, having joked with sarcastic words, Balaram now speaks the facts in 1.5 verses. What punisher such as myself can tolerate such rough, inappropriate words from proud people bewildered by their power, as if intoxicated with wine? Others may tolerate, but not me. Srila Sridhar Swami comments, like those who are intoxicated with liquor and so on. Rukshaha means harsh, and Anushashita means ourselves who are the wielders of punishment. So, at this juncture, the Kurus are thinking themselves quite important, and they're thinking the Yadu dynasty to be quite important. They don't have recognition for who is the Yadu dynasty, right? They don't see that Krishna is part of the Yadu dynasty, and they don't see Krishna as the personality that Krishna is. So when we misidentify in this way, then we can make very foolish statements. In the Ishopanishad, it says, Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. Everything animate or inanimate in the whole universe is actually controlled and owned by Krishna. So the Kurus are saying, we're these great rulers, this is our land, and the Yadus have their little thing going on, but they're very unimportant compared to us. And actually, Krishna is called Yadavaya. He is the jewel of the Yadu dynasty, and they're just completely over. Better, Prabhu? So the Kurus are completely overlooking the position of Krishna in actuality. And they're thinking themselves very important, very puffed up, as Balaram says. And they're forgetting the fact that Krishna is actually the proprietor of everything. In the 9th mantra, Vishopanishad, it says, those who are engaged in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. And the 14th mantra says, one should know perfectly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So since the Kurus don't know Krishna in truth, they are forced to enter into the darkest ignorance. And that is why Balaram is calling them puffed up and drunkards and so on. And this is the position of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram is Adi Guru, the original Guru. So the position of the Guru is to take these qualities that we have that aren't so good and strip us of them. So he's finding these qualities in the Kurus, and then he's going to essentially punish them for being in this culture of nescience, as Prabhupada calls it. And that happens in the next verse when Balaram begins to take his action. So this was kind of my meditation in reading this verse, is we really have two options. We can either continue with our faults and our misgivings and our improprieties, or we have a choice. We don't have to continue in that way. We don't have to continue to reside in nescience. We're so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has come and given us an alternative way to live. Because this lack of knowledge of who Krishna is, Krishna's position as the supreme absolute truth, is truly the darkest of ignorance. When I think of my life before Krishna consciousness, as just kind of stumbling around, eyes closed, not really knowing what's going on, groping around in the dark, trying to find a little bit of happiness and comfort in a place that's not really meant for that. But Srila Prabhupada has so kindly come and given us the actual truth. There is no happiness in this world without Krishna. So now I have the choice. Do I want to continue as I was before, thinking, oh, maybe, if I do this, or if I have this, or if I get this job, or if I marry the right person, or this, that, or the other, then I can be happy. Or I can hear what Srila Prabhupada has told us, that by knowing Krishna, we can actually know happiness. But even then, when we decide to turn our backs on Maya and try to go towards Krishna, due to association with the material modes of nature, we have some anartas, we have some things that are holding us back from pure Krishna consciousness. And these are things like pride and false ego, being puffed up, thinking, oh, I already know everything. And Srila Prabhupada, there's these things are stumbling blocks on our way to Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said in a letter in 1972, I can kick out all those stumbling blocks immediately, provided you accept my guidance. With one stroke of my kick, I can kick out all stumbling blocks. So this is our choice. Do we want to stumble? Or do we want to surrender to Guru and let Guru take care of us? Strip us of our improprieties. Particularly with Lord Balaram, we can see in the 10th canto, there's this, not just the 10th canto, but when we look at the Leela of both Lord Balaram and Lord Nityananda, there's this dichotomy. So in the 10th canto, very early on, in Talavan, Lord Balaram kills the Dhenukasura, the ass demon. And later, the chapter before this chapter, he kills Dvitvita, the gorilla. And now he's about to punish the Kurus. So there's this very heavy way about Lord Balaram sometimes, that he's going around killing demons. But in Gora Leela, it's a little bit different. And particularly in the Panihati Leela, where Lord Nityananda decides, Raghunath Das, I'm going to punish you. What kind of punishment does he give Raghunath Das Goswami? In one sense, it's a punishment to have to fork over lots of money to feed the Vaishnavas. But really, that's a pretty fun thing to do, is to have a big festival with devotees. And then Lord Nityananda places his lotus feet on the head of Raghunath, which is the ultimate mercy. And the difference is between these leelas in the 10th canto and this leela in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the demons never decided, okay, I'm going to surrender to Lord Balaram. They wanted to fight. That's the leela. But in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Raghunath Das Goswami is a devotee. He surrenders, and then he gets the mercy. So this is, as far as I can tell, this is our choice. We can either not surrender and get the sauce, or we can surrender and get the mercy. Personally, I'd rather surrender and get the mercy. So, in this letter from Srila Prabhupada, he caveats. He says, I can kick out all your stumbling blocks. But he caveats by saying, provided you accept my guidance. So Srila Prabhupada gives guidance to everybody in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. A handful of things. They're not terribly complicated. There's no PhD required. Anybody can do them with sincerity. So what is the guidance that Srila Prabhupada gives to us so that he can then kick out all of our stumbling blocks? He asks us to follow the 4 regulative principles. He asks us to chant 16 rounds. He asks us to study scriptures together in this format in Srimad Bhagavatam class. He also asks that we study the Gita and the CC as well. And he asks us to distribute his books. So this is much more simple than it could be. And it's much more simple than it has been. In previous ages, the Yuga Dharma was far more difficult, at least by today's standards. We don't have the capacity to do those things anymore. We don't have the capacity to meditate for thousands of years. We don't have the capacity to perfectly worship the deity. This is part of the symptoms of Kali Yuga. But what we can do, if we choose, is we can chant Hare Krishna. And it's not nearly as difficult as those other things. I spend so much time using my mouth to talk nonsense. But if I devote just a little bit of time every day to chanting Hare Krishna and doing these other things that Srila Prabhupada tells us to do, there's so much benefit to be had there. So this is our option, as far as I can tell. We either get the sauce or the mercy. If you're wondering, the Kurus are really going to get the sauce. So unfortunately, I went a little bit faster than I planned to. I really thought I'd be able to elaborate on my notes more. but my notes were pretty in-depth, so they went very quickly, very concisely as far as concision for me goes. Um, so I don't have much more to add. So I'm hoping that this assembly of elevated Vaishnavas can add some more. Hmm? Yes.
Thank you for your class, Prabhuji. Um, well, I'm very inspired by you even giving class because I met you when you first came through and we developed some sort of a friendship, camaraderie naturally. I was wondering if maybe um, I'm since I do music, I'm very inspired by the way you came to Krishna consciousness. Or one of the things that inspired you was with the band Shelter, and I was wondering if you um, had any thoughts about that type of thing in this kind with the musicians and music and stuff like that, because that's kind of like my area.
Music's been an integral part of ISKCON, and it's just beyond ISKCON. Music is an integral part of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. There's so many nice songs from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, for example. Um, and thanks to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, he has allowed us to adapt and use music as a tool, not just to express our feelings of devotion within the temple, by singing bhajans or by chanting congregationally. We can very easily use music as a preaching tool. And there's been so many devotees made by music in one way or another. It all started with Srila Vishnujan Swami. He had this, before it was the Radha Damodar party, it went under some different name. It was a traveling bus full of musicians. It would go around from town to town. They would set up a stage and then perform. They would chant Hare Krishna. They would sing bhajans. They'd have all these variegated musical instruments. And at the time, it was something that was very attractive. People were very broad-minded. Anything from the East was new and shiny and exciting. And so people were drawn to it. And as the culture has changed, devotees have had the intelligence to present Krishna Bhakti in a way that is relevant to the culture. So in the 80s and 90s, there was this hardcore music scene in New York, and devotees that were previously in that scene, after coming in contact with devotees and themselves becoming devotees, started to present music in the style of New York hardcore. And we have, so many other genres that devotees perform in now. It's ever expanding. It feels like every week there's a devotee entering into a new genre to make music about Krishna. And I think when we do these things, Srila Prabhupada must be very pleased when we do these things to spread Krishna consciousness. Because this is the essence of our movement. This isn't a movement to sit around in the temple and sing bhajans together. This is an ecclesiastical movement. This is a preaching movement. Mahaprabhu himself was a preacher. Srila Prabhupada himself was a preacher. This is what we do. We go out and we preach to people. And there's other things involved we have to have the temples. Prabhupada said the temple is our center of operations, and we go out from there. And we have to maintain the temple nicely. We have to take care of our deities nicely, because Krishna has so kindly decided to come to us. This very beautiful form of Kishora Kishori. And when we engage our abilities in Krishna consciousness, that's the perfection of life, taking what we have and making it offering to Krishna in whatever form that is. So if somebody is very expert at making garlands, that's very good. If somebody can sing very nicely or speak very nicely, that's very good. Whatever we can do, we should be doing it for Krishna. That's what Prabhupada taught us. Not that we have to leave everything that we used to do, because everything in the material world is Maya, and we have to only fit inside this box. But we can take what we know how to do and blend it with Krishna Bhakti. So it's very effective in terms of going outward and preaching, but it's also very effective for ourselves in cultivating our own Bhakti Lata. And for me personally, having that musical element very early, it was music that sounds familiar externally, but has a different message, really begins to change the thinking internally, especially with this hardcore music. It's very, very much in the mode of passion. So the music, externally, when you hear just the guitars and the drums and the bass, it's a mode of passion. But when the lyrics talk about Krishna, when the lyrics are in the mode of goodness, it can really start to help shift the mind from mode of passion to mode of goodness. And it's another way that we can always be thinking about Krishna. That's one of the most important teachings that we have, is to always think of Krishna and never forget him. So when we're doing that, that means we can do that with music. We can do that with anything that we do, with writing, for example. Satsvarup Das Goswami he was going to be a writer. He had this karma for writing. And when Prabhupada engaged him, we can see what it produced. He's wrote over 200 books. Very profound. Not many authors can get anywhere near that number. And we have these Krishna conscious musicians that are engaging their talents for preaching as well. Krishna consciousness is so variegated that we're able to do all of these things. And it's so nice when we can engage our propensities for Krishna. And it was, like I said, it was very instrumental for myself as well. Having this bridge that was something between the worldly and material music that I used to listen to and the bhajans of the acharyas, for example. There was something that connected that for me, because that's a very big gap to cross without help. So being able to in some way talk about Krishna in music that is contemporary is very nice.
You were putting an emphasis on there being a choice, either a kind of some sort of punishment, or else recognizing Krishna's position. So I was just thinking about it because you've also been making the connection with the movement being one of going out and preaching. So recently I've been noticing in this area of Rogers Park, every now and again there's a section of pavement where somebody has chalked in something like accept God, repent. And it's quite frequent, like many spots all over this area. So if one considers that the predominant culture externally is putting an emphasis on actually recognizing one's own wrongdoing, and that somehow this implies an acceptance of God, it's a little different from the Vaishnava teaching where there's an emphasis being put on take up positive practices that put the mind into the mode of goodness, and thereby one is gradually coming to realize Lord Krishna's position. So, anyway, I was just looking at this, and if you have some thoughts, or if it's something that um, you could respond to in terms of this observation, and if it's something that you think is of value in terms of considering the approach one has when going out into a culture that has a somewhat different view.
Thank you. I think it comes a lot down to presentation. And if anyone has marketing experience, the object of marketing is to present whatever it is in a palatable way. And having spent the last year or so in Texas, I'm very familiar with these preachers that are going out in the fire and brimstone mood. Particularly, there's this sect of Christianity. It's very much into this very strong preaching of repent or go to hell. And there's, I remember so many times being on the campuses there, and they show up. Texas has some of the best First Amendment laws in the country. So anybody can go to a First Amendment area on the campus and say pretty much whatever nonsense they want, as long as it's not like violent outrightly. So this sect would go and they would have signs and t-shirts and megaphones, things that say, "Ask me why you deserve hell." And, we're also on these campuses, and we have our books. And it's a real dichotomy in presentations. Just externally, we're much more docile, much more happy. When you look at those people, they're very angry. Their faces are all screwed up with this very shrewd nature. And they're yelling at people very loudly, and they have these megaphones, and they'll get right into someone's face. Scream at them, "You're going to hell because of this." And it's not a very attractive presentation. It does work, surprisingly, for a small group of people. This, I can't remember the exact name for them, but this group, this Christian group, or this umbrella of Christian groups, they're growing quite rapidly in the South, because there is a demographic of people that basically get scared into submission. That, oh, well, these people are saying I'm going to hell if I don't listen to them, and I really don't want to go to hell, so I guess I better listen to them. And the thing I noticed is these people are so devoid of joy that when you have a conversation with them, They're angry. No matter what the topic is, they're very angry. If you ask them how their day is going, never are they going to say, oh, it's going pretty good. There's always something wrong. There's something very negative to focus on. And for the vast majority of people that I've met and talked to, it's a very unattractive thing to be that externally negative. And on the other side of that, when I am on campuses, particularly those campuses which have people preaching fire and brimstone, it's particularly successful when you're happy. And that is, ideally, as Vaishnavas, what we are, is happy. It's one of the big slogans from Prabhupada's times. Chant and be happy. And there is a certain amount of gravity in our message. Every morning, the first thing we sing is Samsara Dava Nalalita Loka Trinaya Karunya Ganaganat. This world is a blazing forest fire. It's not a very happy message, but it's the truth. The second half of that message is also the truth, but it's also happy. That by the mercy of Guru, we can overcome the blazing forest fire. And for myself, personally, when I try to present this message of Krishna consciousness, I always try to tailor it for who I'm talking to. And there are the people that resonate with the joy of Krishna consciousness, and there are the people that resonate with the misery of the material world. And the people that resonate with the joy of Krishna consciousness seem to be perceptive when we say, yes, this world is a very uncomfortable place, but in Krishna consciousness, we found a way to make the best of it. And the people that are caught up in how miserable the world is also agree that, yes, this world is a very miserable place. And then they're very happy to hear that we found a way to make the best use of a bad bargain, as Srila Prabhupada would say. So we have to be intelligent in our preaching. Last night I was just reading a list from Mahatma Prabhu about mistakes that people make commonly in preaching, and it's 80-something or 90-something different bullet points that he makes. They're very common mistakes. One of them is being too heavy with somebody. One of them, and I'm paraphrasing very heavily here, one of them is being too heavy with somebody, and one of them is not being heavy enough, or not presenting. Another way he said it, a slightly different way he said it, is not telling the truth enough, or telling the truth too much. So we have to engage the intelligence that we have, particularly when we're preaching to new people, because it's very easy to steer them away if we are too light, too heavy, too this, too that. But at the end of the day, we do have this choice. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that we have this choice. He never tells Arjuna, you have to do this. He says, well, you can do this, you can do that, you decide. He always tells Arjuna that Arjuna can make his own choice. And Krishna, being the intelligence of man, he can give us knowledge or forgetfulness according to what our desires are. So, once we have that desire for knowledge, he reciprocates. But for myself, at least, I think it's important to remember that if I choose forgetfulness, I have to remember what I'm signing up for. It's not all As they say, not all that glitters is gold. The material world isn't a very nice place. In actuality, it seems like there might be a little bit of enjoyment somewhere, or a lot of enjoyment somewhere, but really there's not. Not compared to what I've found here in the very short time that I've been here. And I think when we can hone in on not presenting the message only in this way, or not presenting the message only in that way. It's not that we only have the choice between being punished or enjoying, but when we can intelligently talk to each individual person and meet them where they're at, that's when we can become successful. That's when we see a positive result, because everybody's an individual. This is another very, very core teaching. Everybody's individual, everybody's different. We all have our own relationship with Krishna, we all have our own anarthas, we all have our own ways of thinking and being and doing, and trying to intuit what's going to resonate with people. I find it quite fun when I'm meeting new people to learn about them and then try to think of something that I can share with them. So yesterday, in the late morning, two nice people came, and I'm talking to them, and the other one let some information slip. Oh, they're an English major. I thought, oh boy, they're gonna like this. So I start telling them, it's so easy to use Sanskrit phrases because we're so used to it, prasadam and Prabhupada and things like that, because we already know the meaning, but new people have no clue what these words are. And this person, being an English major, was very interested in how Sanskrit translates to English and how the word Prabhupada means the master, the master at whose feet many masters sit, instead of the master of feet. Because the word itself, Prabhu, master, and feet, seems like it's just the master of feet. So being able to actually get to know somebody, that's when we start to see the results. Even if those people never come back, they'll remember, when I went to the Hare Krishna temple, the person there was nice, and he talked to me about things that I like. And they might go to 100 other temples and churches and never get that, because the other people are so focused on, you have to do this, you have to do that, this is the truth no matter what. So it's a personal movement. That's really what it is personalism. Getting to know somebody for who they are and what they like. It's personalism. Because if we're not focused on the people, what are we focused on? We've got five more minutes for my incoherent ramblings. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks a lot for the wonderful class you gave. Yeah, just last week Monday class, I was mentioning that temple, whatever program we do, make devotees, and you appeared. Hare Krishna.
Unfortunately, I don't have the power to make devotees.
Anyway, my thing is, what we speak from Bhagavatam, it comes true. Whatever. Like, there was one verse, Yajanti Sankirtan. Many times we mentioned, but many devotees come and chant, then it becomes very nice. Morning is auspicious. Mangalanti. So, Bhagavatam is like desire tree, whatever it comes out like. So, can you tell me about this secret? And other thing is, you mentioned that Prabhupada's words, you have to obey the orders of spiritual master. Like you give different examples, chanting. distributing books, following the principles. So, which one is the most difficult in this? Like,
Which of Prabhupada's instructions is most difficult?
yeah, all are meant for chanting Hare Krishna. I like where, yeah, where we can fix our mind.
Well, we're all individual. So each person finds different things difficult for different reasons. They say what softens a potato hardens an egg. So, one thing, for example, book distribution, I know devotees that if they couldn't distribute books, they would probably just die because that is their life and soul. And I know other devotees who find it very difficult to distribute books. And that's because we're people, we're individuals. We all have different qualities and all of the things that I was just saying. So different things are difficult for different people. Different things are easy for different people. Some people find it very easy to chant 16 nice rounds. Some people find it very easy to chant 64 nice rounds. Some people find it nearly impossible to chant one mediocre round. But there's help. For whatever anga of bhakti as Prabhupada presents it, there's help to make us do better. And there's not that everybody has to engage in the same things. Not everybody has to distribute books. But everybody can find a way to distribute books. If it becomes convenient and you're not a book distributor, but you meet somebody who might want a book, then you can give them a book. You don't have to go out for 6 hours a day to college campuses and shopping malls and parking lots and try to distribute books to complete strangers. If that's not your thing, that's not your thing. You know, if you can't sing to save your life and you know it, or you don't like to, then you don't have to go out and sing. You can let somebody who's very expert sing. Prabhupada was so expert at engaging people at things that they were good at. That's one of the reasons, the more material reasons, why this movement was so successful when Prabhupada was present. Because he could find, oh, this person has this quality, I'm going to engage them in this service that corresponds with it. And Tamal Krishna Goswami was also that way. I said he could get 30 people to peel one potato. He was such an expert manager. Because what it is meeting people, getting to know them, saying, okay, well, you like music, so you should probably do something with music. Because that's your propensity. And not, well, you like music, so you should definitely only chant your rounds and chant more rounds and that. So what if that's not your thing? You should chant 16 rounds because that's what Prabhupada's given, but we have to engage with our propensities.
Buddhist mind, mind is a friend, bandhuratmanas. So it's on a like many services. If you ask devotees, they say to keep a fix our mind in chanting is the most difficult. Especially other services we can do it like suppose arti. There's some joy. There's some this. But particularly chanting of Hare Krishna, mind to fix on that is not so easy. Or sit in a place, or mind wanders everywhere.
Well, we're very fortunate that there's so many books on japa by people who know how to fix their mind on the name. And in reading these books, we get a little bit of help. We're also fortunate that there's nice devotees who do japa retreats, and they, in an even more practical way than just reading a book, when we go to a japa retreat, then we can ask questions. I'm having this problem, what do I do? When I wake up in the morning and I try to chant, I see my phone and I just can't keep my hands off of it. Oh, okay, well, if you start your morning with your phone in the trash can, you won't have that problem. Oh, thanks. And then you try it and it works. And similarly, if you're not so good at book distribution, there are books about book distribution and seminars. And Vaisheshika has been called an empowered gulab jamun. And if you bump into him, you get covered in juice. And he will gladly teach anybody how to be an expert book distributor because he is so expert himself. So there are difficulties. Some difficulties are more broad, or they are difficult for lots of people, but there are solutions as well. Any final comments, criticisms, chastisements, or questions? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.